Welcome back, J2 fam. I'm your host, Jeremiah.
And I'm also Jeremiah.
Today we have the honor and privilege to have with us one of the winningest coach in Missouri. He wins a lot. SBU head coach, Paul Hansen.
Hey, what's up, baby? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you for coming on. So, start out with it. Who is Coach Hansen? Who are you as a person outside of football?
Well, I think the big thing, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, right? And to my wife, Joanna, and my three little girls. Not little, one's going to be in high school next year. But, just football, and I'm a coach, and at home I'm kind of the dad, husband to my girls. So it's cool.
So tell us, why did you choose SBU, and how did you end up here?
Yeah, so I think I'm really familiar with SBU, having got my master's here. My wife got her doctorate here. So, I know about SBU, kind of know about the history of the university and the program. And, having gone to college not far from here, I was very familiar with this area. And so I think anytime, in any profession, when you get an opportunity to possibly better yourself for the future, you always got to look at that. And had a great time at Mid-America these last 5 years, and so feel like I got a lot achieved there that I was wanting to do, and so getting the opportunity to do that here, where I know a lot of people, and in a university that I kind of got some of my education done, would have been a pretty cool opportunity.
So this is your 10th year as a head football coach, but you have 19 years as an actual coach. What led you into coaching? How'd you get your start, and where'd you get your first head coach job?
Yeah, so I think a big thing was coming out of college, I actually didn't even want to coach. I got my degree in PE, and I was like, man, I don't know if I really want to do this. I was actually in pharmaceutical sales for about 6 months. So learned real quick that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah. And so kind of got my first coaching job, coaching middle school football, 7th grade, and I was like the B team coach, and I didn't do a whole lot. I think I just kind of held a bag around and, just kind of helped out. But learned pretty fast that I really liked it. And then from there, got my first head coaching job at a middle school in Springfield and in the inner city, and had 19 kids and played for the city championship. I realized, hey, I really like this, and I want to do this. So kind of made a career out of it, started there.
Okay, so your first opportunity as a college head coach was Mid-American Nazarene. Yeah. And you actually took over that job in 2020 during COVID. So how was that experience in balancing that adversity?
Yeah, that wasn't a fun experience. You guys were probably just like playing video games all day or something when we had to stay at home, right? So, when I got to Mid-America, we knew about COVID. It wasn't like we weren't shut down or anything. So it took us a while, but after a couple of weeks of being there, we shut down. And so that was really tough, taking over a new program. We only had 59 guys on the team when I got there. So trying to navigate through that, and then COVID, and, we couldn't really have kids on campus, couldn't recruit. So it kind of really set us back a lot. We didn't get spring ball or nothing. So my first time on the field with the team was that August when we reported. And even that was kind of weird, being and mask, and we were all over we had to stay far apart in practice. It's just like really weird. So that kind of set us back a little bit, but we got through it. I had a plan, and we stuck to it, and it all kind of worked out.
Aside from COVID, obviously there's got to be a lot of challenges that you face first year as a head coach. What are some of those challenges that you face, and how did you overcome them? Yeah,
and I had been a head coach at the high school level for 1 year, so I kind of understood the role, but in college is a little bit different than high school kids. College, you get to pick your players. You get to choose who's on your team. In high school, you don't. You kind of stuck with what you got. So, there's different challenges, but I think at the end of the day, football's football, and we had a good plan of what we want to do, and I think it all just kind of naturally between recruiting and getting good coaches, it kind of just fell into place.
Well, you mentioned the plan twice now in your answers. What goes into your plan? What does that consist of?
Yeah, I think one, it's just over time. As a coach, you're continuing to learn, so you learn what works, what doesn't work, and some coaches, this is where they don't do as well as they're not willing to change a little bit. I mean? So like I'm probably a different coach now than I was maybe 10 years ago, just with times change a little bit. And so you have to be able to navigate that. I also think every situation is different. So every university is different, every school is different, every program is different. So kind of navigate maybe what works best at that place and just kind of executing that. I think what doesn't change is kind of the core values. Ours is faith, family, future, football. Those are the 4 pillars of our program, and being able to allow your team to know, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, and I think that's really important that the players know that.
So starting out at Mid-American Nazarene, your first year there, you went 2-6, and by the time you left out of there in 2024. Y'all went 9-2 and ended up winning back-to-back conference championships. So throughout that process, was it any moment where it's like, man, it just won't work or things like this?
Oh yeah, early on it was pretty tough. Like I said, that kind of set us back at the beginning there. But there was times where I think I was at church on a Sunday with my wife. I was like, man, am I even a good coach? I was like, this is not. I feel like we're paddling in the boat. We're not going anywhere, So it was some tough times, but I've learned in life, I'm a competitor, and we just kept on going. And you start to see it just to get better every year. And really, 3 years ago, there we were 7-4, and we lost probably 2 or 3 games, maybe by a total of 17 points. So we were really close then with a bunch of those first recruits that were sophomores and freshmen. So that was pretty cool to see that. It just each year it keeps stacking and getting better. And we stick to the plan. The plan didn't really change. We knew who we wanted to be. It just took more of the players to continue to get better in the off season, but buying into what we were doing and selling and then having good coaches too. I mean, that's in the day, you got to have good coaches, and had incredible assistant coaches, and they did a really good job with it.
So staying at Mid-American Nazarene, in your 5 years there, you sent the first DB to the NFL. You had 4 Freshmen of the Year, 4 All-Americans, 1 Conference Player of the Year, 2 Offensive Player of the Years, and 77 All-Conference players. And you also led them to the playoffs for the first time since 2014. What were kind of some of the goals that you had going into there, and do you feel like you accomplished the many of the things that you wanted to?
Yeah, every year, every team is different. You know what I mean? So, the 23 team was different than the 24 team. This year's 25 team will be different than the 26 team. And so I think, we make those goals and the things that we want to do at the end of every spring. And our guys really decided in 23, we were kind of outside. We were like one of the first teams on the outside of not making the playoffs and winning 9 games, that did not, our guys were not happy about that. So they decided, we're going to do it this next year. We're going to leave no doubt in anyone's mind that we deserve to be in there. And that's what we did, winning, I think 8 straight games to start the season. I mean, there was no doubt. We couldn't leave it in anyone else's hand. Yeah. No Raider, no other coach's hand. It was all on us. And so our guys just decided, hey, you know what, this is not okay. We're gonna win every game that we can. So that was a big thing. And that our guys set out to do, and really started with great leaders, so it's big.
So being a head coach, especially an offensive-minded head coach, how important is it to make sure that you just not focusing on one side of the ball, which it would be easy to do with you coaching offense?
Yeah, I think thing about me, it might be different. Some coaches, so a lot of people say I'm like a player's coach, so I'm involved with everything. I'm the first guy that's probably run out on the field when the defense gets an interception. I'll probably get a flag for it, but I get real excited about it, and I want the best defense in the country. I want the best defense in the conference. When we have a great defense, we're going to be really good. You know what I mean? At least I don't have to score as many points when that happens, right? Yeah. And so we got, that's the expectation that, hey, defense, you guys got to set the tone for everything we do. If you're not doing that, then you're not doing your job. And so that's one thing we try to do. I try to connect with those guys all the time. And I talk to everybody. That's just kind of my personality. I don't really have, my favorites are the guys who are making the plays. So defense, let's go, right? You guys make the plays, let's go.
You talked about yourself as a player's coach. What are some of your other philosophies when it comes to coaching?
I think the big thing is play fast. I think it's a fast game. It's a fast twitch game. So I want our guys to play fast, and I want them thinking a lot. So you come to our practices, that's how it is. I don't need a 2.5 hour practice, but I need is a fast practice. So if it's not as long as we're getting our reps in, our guys should feel like, we just got done playing a game. That's how it should be. And if you're playing right, you're practicing right, the game actually will seem really easy. And so that's how it should be. We should be frustrated with the referees because they're slowing us down. You know what I mean? Because we're used to going so fast. So that's one thing that I've always tried to do is just push our guys to play extremely fast. Don't think, college football players are some of the best athletes in the country. You know what I mean? And you want them to be able to use that. So it's big.
So throughout your coaching career, you coached multiple NFL players that went to the NFL. And so what would you tell like an athlete that want this their goal is to make it to the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing is sometimes coaches are not honest with kids too. You know what I mean? So if you're a guy that wants to go to the NFL, well, then every day that you're doing things, you'll be acting like an NFL player, whether it's in the weight room and how you eat, how you're working out, how you're training, how you're watching film, right? And so I have those conversations with guys like, well, do you really want to go to the NFL? Because if you did, then I would see all these other things matching up to that. But I think the biggest thing is it all sounds cool, right? Yeah, I'm blessed to declare for the draft and all that stuff. Well, dude, you're not going to the NFL if you don't have no film. So you got to have film. You got to have be an opportunity where you're showcased, right? NFL's not looking for a bunch of backup guys who are backing up someone else, right? They want to see film. They want to see you playing. You want to see production. And you got to find the right situation for you that when you're getting that. Because if you're not getting that, then that's probably, if you're really serious about going to the NFL, you got to make sure that you're getting those looks if you want to get that opportunity.
Staying with that, when you were at Mid-American Nazarene, you sent their first player to the NFL in school history. What was that feeling like, though? Being able to say that you sent someone and helped develop him, and he was able to be an NFL player.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Anytime we get the opportunity, when I got that call last April, and he was crying, I was crying. It was so cool, and I'm even more proud of Anthony because of the man he is. Off the field. That's just as exciting, right? Great man, has a great father to his 2 children. And he graduated, first person to graduate. Those are the really important things in my mind. And anything after that's just on, it's just on top, right? Just taking that next step and getting that opportunity. And he'll get to say that for the rest of his life. One, that he was a good father. He graduated and he got the opportunity to go to the NFL. Now he's going to do big things for his family and his kids someday.
You talked about how you weren't just proud of him for going to the NFL, but also how he's doing in life and how he's setting himself up. What are what feelings do you get just knowing that not only that you're setting these kids up with a good football career, but you're also being able to set them up for life after football? One of your old head coaches, Frank Tristan, talked about not you just as an offensive mind, but you as a builder of men.
Yeah, I think football is what we do. It's not who we are. There's so much more to it. Football is just the fun part that brings us all together that we get to do it. But it's so much more than football with me, and it always will be. I can't, I'm gonna die someday, and I can't take all these X's and O's with me, right? But I could take people, to for God's kingdom. So I think that's what's most important to me. But I still like football too. I believe you can do both. You could be both, and you could be great on and off the field, and so that's what we try to push our guys for sure. I want to be remembered as a great coach, but also just how I did stuff for people, and not just for a reward for me, just because it's what you're supposed to do in life. You're supposed to do stuff for people, and that's what I want to be remembered for.
Right. So to talk about you as a developer, your quarterback, Adrian Parsons at Mid-American Nazarene, he actually broke the national passing record in one game when he threw for 659 yards. And by the time he left out of Mid-American Nazarene, he threw for 8,000 yards and 87 touchdowns. So how are you able to develop quarterbacks like that?
I think one, it's obviously good recruiting, establishing that pretty fast in the recruiting process, seeing how they were in high school. I saw him throwing in person, so it's pretty fast. I could realize, hey, this kid's going to be pretty good. I think he's just really staying true to the system, and I taught public schools for 9 years, so I would like to think I'm a pretty good teacher, and I know how to talk to kids. I know how to explain to kids. I feel like I'm really getting old here, but I'm at the point now where I've installed our system many times, so I know what works, what doesn't work, how to get guys playing fast and getting comfortable. And I also think there's something to it, and we're going back to the transfer portal and stuff like that. There is something to that when you're in a system where the coach has done it for a while. There's that track record, but when he's calling plays for you, there's a difference just in the football when someone's just calling plays just to call it, or they calling plays for you to get you the ball and to showcase your talents, right? And I have a pretty good read on my team and my players over the years, so I know what situations, what works and what doesn't, and so that's really important to me.
Right. So talking about repeating, tell us what type of players are you looking for? Like when high school coaches call you and you go visit the schools and stuff, what type of players are you asking for?
Yeah, I think one, you got to get. It's a mean game, right? Football's not nice. You're right. So you got to get guys who are fast twitch, guys who can run. They can move people up front. If you're a guy that gets to have the ball ever, or are you running away from people, or are you always getting caught? Because that's the difference between a nice carry and then a touchdown, right? And so you want to be a team that's fast. I'll go back to the whole fast part of practicing fast. Well, we got to be fast on the field too, and you got to get some body types a little bit too, right? You can't if you saw a bunch of NFL teams and they're all just a bunch of look like a junior high team, you wouldn't take it very serious, would you? You know what I mean? So you got to get some body types, and if you're not the body type, you're going to be fast and explosive and not get caught.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you obviously know how to recruit because you had over 5 freshman players of the year and freshman of the year. So, other than that, you obviously started out. People would maybe think that you started out as a quarterback because you're such an offensive mind, but you actually started out as a receiver at Evangel, where you were an All-American honorable mention. When did you first realize that you would be successful at running an offense?
I'm a ball coach. I love ball. You know what I mean? Even from when I was real little, we'd have season tickets to the Chiefs and always had my football with me. And, we'd go tailgate 3 hours before the game and stuff like that. And I just love ball. And so I've always watched football. I've just always loved it. And so, when I started getting into coaching, I realized pretty fast that, I want to be an offensive coordinator someday. And so actually when I was teaching, my first teaching job was at elementary school. And so you'd get that 30-minute break to go eat. Yeah. And I would hurry and eat. Then I'd run up to the copy room and I'd be making my offense. So I was like, man, someday when I get a chance, I'm going to be ready. Yeah. And I actually still have it. I'll show it to you guys. It's in there on my shelf, but yeah. So I was like, I'll be ready though when I get that opportunity, and life's about opportunities. When you do get the opportunity, you got to make the most of it. And so I surrounded myself with really good people that have my best interest, and I just ran with it. So
going back to when you was teaching and stuff, did you ever think that you would become be named conference coach of the year and NIAA region coach of the year?
I mean, I didn't really think of it like that, I just know I work really hard, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I mean, I'm still gonna work. I'm not gonna change how I work just because I get something or I don't, That's really kind of how I was raised, by my parents and my grandparents, and taught me hard work. And you just do it because that's your job and that's what you're supposed to do. You got to do your job. So all that's fun, but it's just how I was raised. So.
So at Mid-American Nazarene, you averaged 50 points per game, 511 yards per game total, and you were third in the nation. And then he already mentioned that you broke a national passing record. And then at Western New Mexico, you had a 2,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard receiver. What makes your system so successful? What goes into it that maybe differs from other people's?
Yeah. I think it goes back to having good players, right? You got to have good players. If you don't have good players, it doesn't matter. So every play works on the whiteboard. So, but you got to have the players. So I think it's good recruiting. I think it's having good assistant coaches that know how to buy in what you're trying to teach, and then they're teaching as well. And but at the end of the day, it goes back to the players in my mind. I mean, the coach has got to coach and the players got to play, and if both sides just focus on their area, what they're supposed to do, then the whole thing comes together. Like I said, I know how to teach it, and it all aligned perfectly.
So also talking about you as a developer, we mentioned you developing your quarterbacks, but also you're a great coach developer, because at Mid-American Nazarene, when you left to take this job at SBU, they actually gave your job to the defensive coordinator. So I believe this says a lot about like what Mid-America thought that you instilled within their program and what they thought the staff under you could do. So how important is that to develop your staff?
Yeah, I think it's both and. Like, I want my players to leave here better than when they came, and then they go get big jobs and be good husbands, good fathers, good members of the community. Same time with the coaches. I've lost several coaches in America that went on to get big jobs. Like, one was at Colorado this last year, and his job was to help coach offense, but follow Shador around. That was his job. You know what I mean? So having GAs that have gone on, I had my first year, I hired a female, and she was our GA, and after the first year, she got hired by Rutgers to go work over there, you know what I mean? Because she wanted to be in recruiting. So I think what happens is when you work hard, you do a good job where you're at, be really good where you're planted, people notice that. And I think it's kind of getting to the point now to where, I've been able to have some good coaches go do big things at other places, and when you're winning, that helps a lot too. So, people will start trying to take your coaches and your players, and that was no different. It makes me really happy. I feel like kind of like an old dad, when my coaches, and some of those coaches there, I mean, they played for me while I was in Texas. So now they're getting to coaching, they're getting to go do things, and I'm so proud of them, and I take great pride in that, because it means the plan I've had has worked, and I'm proud of them for what they've done.
We talked about like different players and how you always know your body types that you're looking for in recruiting. But what's your recruiting process like? How do you convince a player that you're the coach that they need to play for?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is you got to vet the players really well, right? So you got to have those good conversations with them, their family, see what that's like. You got to see, if they're a high school kid, talking to their high school coach, talking to people in their circles, say, hey, who are they? And if it's a transfer, you definitely got to do that. You got to do your homework. If a kid has been to 8 schools and he's just in the portal again trying to come see it, it's like, all right, here's the deal. There's no consistency. So here, there's a reason why he's leaving everywhere. So having those conversations, and just vetting every kid just to make sure that they would fit our culture. For kids coming in, it's not our job to fit into their culture. It's their job to come into our circle and jump in with us, because if they don't, they will stand out pretty big.
You talk about culture.
Yeah.
What are some of the foundational pieces of the culture that you try to build in all the places that you've been?
Yeah. So kind of like I said, faith, family, future. Football is the big 4 pillars of our program. Future, you put academics by, it's the same thing, and I really believe in those areas. If one of those first 2 areas are not right, then your football's kind of not good, right? So if you're having issues in the classroom, or you're having some family issues and stuff going on, it can affect you as a football player, and so if you're just all about football and you're not taking care of the other areas, and that's going to affect you on the field. And so those are the 4 pillars of our program that we really try to push with our guys, and I want them to understand that when they leave here, that all this stuff goes together, and so it's really big.
So you mentioned earlier that it was important for you to get around the guys that like really pushed you and was good to be around and stuff like that. And I mentor kids back home, and so like I'm gonna send them this clip. That's what I'm gonna ask you this.
Yeah.
So how important is it to like keep that good crowd around you?
Hey, it's important. You are who your 5 closest friends are to you, right? So whoever's in your circle, those closest guys, what they're doing is who you are, right? So I'll tell you this. So in a couple weeks, I'm gonna go play golf. and we're going to tear the heck out of that golf course. Well, all those guys I play college football with, those are my buddies, right? And that doesn't change, right? And so, that's my circle, right? You always will have a circle. When you get older, it just gets a little bit harder because you can't move as much. But that's who you are, and so you want people in your circle that can speak life into you and give you good information, good push you to go do big things, right? One of my closest buddies, I mean, the last couple of years, I've gotten 2 calls on him because I was a reference for him to go get a job, and so you want to have people that can make that call for you or help you when you need that phone call at 3 a.m, right? So that's really important.
For sure.
Yeah, so appreciate that. Now I got a fun question for you. Do you have Belichick or Saban?
Do I have them? I think they're both great coaches. I think Belichick, NFL, best coach, and then college Saban. Now, if Belichick goes and wins 8 national championships in college, you gotta watch out for that. So.
What are some advice you can give to young coaches, trying to get their feet wet in the coaching game, and then also talk to building a network?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is you need to do a really good job where you're at. Okay, it's not an 8 to 5 job. So if you're expecting that, you could go work at Walmart somewhere, right? It's more 8 to 5. This is not an 8 to 5 job. It's a young man's profession, so be willing to do a ton for little. So at the beginning, the pay is probably not going to be great. You're not going to be coming out making a ton of money at the beginning. So be patient, work hard where you're at, get a good group of people around you. So what I did was when I first got into college, I started working camps all over the country, and I started meeting coaches. I worked the OU camp with Jay Norvell. He was one of my buddies, and I'd worked the camp with him. I had George Kittle in my group. There's this kid catching everything. I was like, "Who's that?" He's like, "Oh, he's George Kittle. He's a senior here in the area." I was like, "Well, yeah, he's pretty good, right?" And but
he might go and do some things.
Yeah, he might. And so, getting out there working camps and developing those relationships with people that can make a call for you someday. And hey, I don't have a job, I know someone that does. I can make a call for you or something like that. And just do really good. Be a sponge. Listen, I do not know everything. Still today, I don't. I'm still watching film. I'm still clinicking. I'm still asking questions. I will never be the guy in the room that just knows everything. And when you have that mindset, it's kind of like on the field, right? Just always being competitive, continue to learn, trying to work on your craft, right? Because someone's trying to beat you. And so, when you stay on top of your game, it's like a lot of times this is some coaches later in their career where they start to kind of, maybe their programs are not as good, or they're not as good as they used to be. They lost that drive a little bit. And so got to just stay on it.
Right. So if I'm a recruit or a portal kid looking for a school and getting recruited by SBU, why should I choose to play for SBU, and why should I choose to play for Coach Hansen?
I think the biggest thing, you look at, when you're going to work with somebody or see where they've been, look at the track record. And I'm going to do the same thing here that I did at, Mid-America, same philosophies, same ideas, same everything. And there'll be some new stuff too, just based off where I'm at and trying to see, may I spice it up a little bit here and there. And so, and really those players who want them to come in with me and help us take that next step where we need to take. And I think you can do it for sure.
You talked about coaches losing their job. As 19 years in the game right now, what has helped you keep your job?
I think a big thing is a family. I go back to that. So I can go home at night, and I live with 4 females, so I have 3 daughters and my wife. So I'm able to put that phone away and go out in the yard and play catch with my daughter, or go work on soccer with them. And so I've learned to make sure I have that time for family and get away when I need to get away, and when I need to grind, I need to grind. There has to be some kind of limit there a little bit. You know what I mean? Just because you spend 75 hours in the office week doesn't make you a better coach. Not necessarily. You got to work smarter. not always harder sometimes. And so you got to have a balance in your life a little bit. And so I've done that over the years, and I'll still go on vacation when I need to, just to get away. And I'm still loving it. So I'm not there yet for sure.
Yeah. You also talked about how there's going to be points where you're doing a lot for a little. Do you have any fun stories about things that you had to do during your first years as a coach? We had one coach tell us that he was a janitor and he was, sweeping the floors for the coach's office. What are some of the things that you maybe had to do in your early years?
Yeah, man, I think it might have been like 14, 15 years ago. I think I was like a ISS teacher at a middle school with a bunch of 7th and 8th graders in the basement, no windows, making like $15,000 a year. I was like, man, what am I doing here? But I mean, sometimes you got to take those hard jobs just to get an opportunity down the road, and you got to be willing to move. If you don't want to move, then this is probably not the profession for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think at one point we lived in 5 states in 7 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So you got to be able to do that. But once you do it, it's like the most rewarding profession in the world, And my daughters have they've gone to a lot of different schools, but they've got to see the country. They've lived in Texas, Missouri, Kansas, New Mexico. Someday when they have an opportunity, they're not going to be afraid of change, though. Right? They're going to be like, when there's some kind of adversity, they're going to be ready to step right into it and attack it. And a lot of life lessons there for sure.
Yeah. So from ISS teacher to conference coach of the year, I'm pretty sure it's easy to get comfortable and be like, hey man, I came a long way, I earned this. Why haven't you got comfortable yet?
When you get comfortable, you get beat. So that could go for your team too. You get comfortable, you're feeling pretty good, right? It's like you get up on that you guys go surfing or anything like that. You get up on that, you're going knee boarding or something behind a boat. You start feeling pretty good, and then that one wave, it wipes you out. You can't ever get comfortable. You get comfortable, you get beat, and I'm never comfortable. So my wife lets me know all the time, hey, you need to get comfortable. Like, no, I can't.
Can't do that. So talk about not getting comfortable, still grinding. What are some you've accomplished a lot as a coach, obviously. What are some more goals that you still have for yourself?
I don't think I have a lot of stuff written down. I think when I got into the profession, the very first year I ever went to this big football convention, I still have the notebook in there too. I'll show it to you, but I actually I wrote down on the airplane back everything I wanted to achieve in the next 10 years. And I opened it up a couple years ago, and I've achieved like almost all of it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But see, I'm a goal-driven person, so I think the biggest thing is I want to leave this program better than when I found it. Not that it was in a bad spot, but I just want to make it better, and I want to work hard, and I have a lot of people that are expecting me to do that. So I take that. I think it's really important, and I take it serious, and that's just what I'm going to do.
Right. So how important is it for players to have goals as well? Because I mean, it's like jumping in the car.
Yep.
Without having a destination.
Well, I think it's really important. You have to have that, and what's most important though is you have someone that holds you accountable to that too, right? So I'm getting ready to meet with every player, everyone, the whole program here the next couple of weeks, and the guys are going to come in here. They're going to have a paper. They're going to fill it out for me, and there's going to be goals on there, and there's going to be, hey, how much do you weigh? I mean, we're going to have all that stuff, and so when I meet with them the next time, and you say you want to be all conference running back, right? But you've lost weight, or you're not where you're maybe you're not showing me that you really want to do that, and so there's accountability there, right? There has to be that in the program. So that's one thing we're going to do, and try to push our guys to be great. It's just not elevator music. We're not just saying it just because it sounds good. So,
you've obviously built a lot of winning cultures and made places winning places. What are some core things that you've seen throughout your time making winning cultures or being a part of winning cultures, and some consistencies you've seen?
Yeah, I think one thing is you, as a coach, and spring's a good time to do this. You got to really do a good job of evaluating your team, because that spring team might be different. It's different from the fall. And now with the portal, all this stuff going on, there's kids going everywhere. Every team's going to be different by a lot, you know? And so getting the guys on the bus that want to be on the bus and getting the guys off that don't want to be on there, that's the biggest thing for me. Because if your culture's strong and you've done a good job of recruiting and getting the right guys in there, the guys that come in that don't want that will actually stand out so bad that they'll actually will like cut themselves kind of, you know what I mean? Because they'll be such an outsider that they want to be there, you know? And high achievers do not like people that want to do that, you know, if you're really legit. And really guys who don't really achieve they don't want to achieve high stuff, they don't like the high achievers because they stand out, you know what I mean? And there's accountability there. So I think that's a big thing you got to do in the spring for sure. Yeah.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the interview. What's something you want to say to any players watching why they need to come play for Coach Hansen?
Oh man, well, I think the biggest thing is you gotta work hard where you're at. You gotta do good in school. You should know your GPA if a coach asks you.
Yeah.
If you don't know that, then academics are not serious, and it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're not eligible, it doesn't matter. You can't play anyway. So work hard. We want kids that want to work hard, they want to win, and want to compete. At the end of the day, those are the three big areas. And when you want to do those things, you will align perfect with our team. And man, we'll be competitive on Saturdays.
You guys will beat you to the office.
Yeah, in which I've not seen anyone here on this team yet that can beat me here to the office. So if you see any, let me know.
I have a few times. But I got a last fun question for you. So, what's the best football state to recruit from as a coach?
Best football state to recruit from?
You can throw some underrated ones there too.
Where are you from?
I'm from Oklahoma.
I will go Oklahoma just because we know the best players from Texas go up to Oklahoma and play. So no, there's some great football. There's a lot of places. You know, Texas, Oklahoma has some great ones. Georgia's really good. Louisiana, those are some areas that I don't think are recruited enough as they should be. Florida, I've had a lot of Florida guys on my team over the years. A lot of speed down there. I like speed, and so all great areas for sure.
What you have to do with Texas?
Yeah, maybe they're high school, not their professional teams.
So you heard it here first, Texas the best. But appreciate y'all for tuning in. Appreciate you for coming on. Yeah, make sure y'all subscribe and stay tuned.
And remember to turn on notifications so you know when we post a meeting.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah.